Greetings. Welcome all to Dorsey's Resource. The topic of this video is going to be deep state Democrats planning a summer of rage to sabotage Trump. That is the topic. That is what I'm going to go over. A piece of what is going on. There's many things going on behind the scenes. There's a lot to unpack. Without further ado, let's give the disclaimer. This video is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research into the matter if they disagree or feel otherwise. It is encouraged that you seek a competent professional at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of the information. With that being said, everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. All rights are reserved. Now, to get into the topic, the left is planning a summer of rage. Once again, the deep state Democrats are planning a summer of rage to sabotage Trump. This is a portion of what they're doing in their counterattack that's not being spoken of in the mainstream media, of course, but they are putting out subliminal messages and things to their followers to get them roused up and certain things as a distraction to keep them angry, keep them in fear, a state of fear, paranoia. These are the tactics that have been going on for a while. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the topic. This comes even prior when they tried to assassinate Trump last year. Prior to that, Jamie Raskin out of Maryland, in case you don't know who Jamie Raskin is, he's an American attorney, law professor, and politician serving as a U.S. representative for Maryland's 8th Congressional District since 2017. He's just one part of the deep state. He stated publicly, and there's video footage. If you want evidence, want proof, go to band.video. I'm not making this up, but he previously stated that if Trump won the 2024 election, they would stage riots and acts of violent uprisings, aka leftist forms of insurrections. I found out non-governmental organizations that had previously been receiving money have been cut off, and this is why many of them are upset, by the way. That's what the scandal part of it I may get more into based on my notes with the USAID, certain agencies. As I've told you guys in the past, if you guys remember my work when I exposed some things according to that event I went to years ago, and certain individuals didn't like me putting out information where I mentioned how I had saw that the members and the higher ups, they use their nonprofits and foundations to launder money and manipulate people. Then I discovered people very wealthy that have ties to the secret societies of Freemasons and ties to networks that don't necessarily have good intentions behind the scenes, but they want to portray this to the general public, and they'll have the mainstream media portray them in a positive light. Remember, the mainstream media, the mainstream dinosaur media, corporate media, is not going to portray the people that are actually making a difference overall. I'm not saying they're perfect, but the criminals, the bad guys, things have been, they have been in charge for a long time. I'm going to go over some information dealing with that because I only got so much time before I want to run through my notes, but I just wanted to give you guys an idea what's actually going on. Once again, non-governmental organizations, many of them leftist groups, have been previously receiving money because of the fraud that's been uncovered. There's a forensic accounting audit that has discovered major fraud between USAID, the U.S. Department of Education, and it's some other group. I didn't get a chance to, I had to go back. But those two groups I can confirm. That's why there was controversy going on with the U.S. Department of Education and other forms of public corruption. This is called public corruption. These crazy deranged leftists are planning on staging false flags attacks on black churches, migrant protests. They are gearing up for massive violence. They're gearing up for false flags against illegal alien protests, black churches and colleges. Many of them have put out subliminal messages on their dinosaur mainstream media corporate platforms such as MSNBC, CNN, etc. Since the Democrats keep saying Trump and Tom Homan, that is, I think that's the guy that's over Trump's Homeland Security, that's in charge of the deportation. They're putting out messages. They keep saying that him and Tom Homan and Trump supporters are going to kill migrants en masse. This is what they're telling their followers. Mind you, they're pushing this propaganda. They're going to mow them down en masse. So don't take my word for what I'm saying. because as I give in my disclaimer, you have to do your own homework and research. But this is being reported on mainstream corporate worldwide mainstream sites. But here in the U.S. domestically, CNN, MSNBC, ABC News, everywhere else, they want to program their followers. So in their minds, when one of their Manchurian candidates does something, many of their leftist followers and minions will believe their propaganda, which is being exposed. Many people are waking up contrary to popular belief. Now, by reporting on this, I am warning you, I can attempt to help wake as many people in the population as I can, but many are still brainwashed, including many of your relatives, your family members. They think that they're the ones that are awake, but they're actually being programmed because it's a lot of brainwashing going on. This is actually happening on The View, where they're mentioning illogical information that is not factual about Elon Musk that's been debunked. His organization actually has a partnership with NASA, and they have video footage of some of his starships that did come back and arrive. That there's a magnetic robot that opens up and captures them, and there's complete video footage of that to debunk some of the lies and myths that's being put out by Whoopi Goldberg and others, because they're actually pushing hate and fear because they're mad they're not in power anymore. They have been laundering money. They have been weaponized. Many government agencies. There's lawfare going on with the courts, and they're being exposed, and they're mad. They're upset about this. I understand why. So this is why they're pushing this propaganda. They're even when they have Republicans on their platform, and they try to seem like they're being bipartisan or fair or nonpartisan. So the Republicans on the platforms will ask, well, who is this coming from? And the Democrats, they'll double down and say, now someone is going to do this. They're going to double down and say Trump is going to push this, just like they double down on many of the lies of the January 6th situation, that the George Floyd riots and protests were far worse. Many people got killed versus the January 6th riots. Contrary to popular belief, the lies, far more people were killed during the George Floyd riot. So you just do the math. If you weigh between the two, many businesses were burned down across the country. There was also an agenda, just like the California wildfires and stuff, which some people believe. They don't believe the official narrative, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not really focusing on that. But the Republicans on the panel discussion will ask in many cases where they're calling for to kill migrants en masse or target black churches. And someone on the left will say, well, somebody's going to stage the false flag. And then they're going to blame it on conservatives too, by the way, or Trump supporters. That's their goal. That's why right after Trump won, you had these feds, neo-Nazis, that were marching in Michigan, Columbus, Ohio. It was even reported in Columbus, Ohio, that a group of neo-Nazis in a white van were pulled over by the police and were let go all of a sudden mysteriously. So folks, you got to do the math. Those are feds. Who has access to like these evil text messages that were sent? Actually, Facebook, aka Meta, was sued some years ago. They actually put out and was data mining people's information. Google was sued through data breaches. This came out already. So this was happening on the left. They're trying to make it seem like this is coming from the right, but this was had already happened. Many numerous data breaches. Many had said, and I told you guys in the past, many of these hacks and things have been coming mainly from the left, and this was prior to, even before Elon or Trump even came in, many of these so-called cyber attacks, because Klaus Schwab with the World Economic Forum, they need to program you to say there's going to be a cyber attack, which they mentioned this on the record. There's video footage of this, so don't take my word for what I say. Just like in my disclaimer, I encourage you guys to do your own homework and do your own research. But just to let you know once again, that they're pushing this propaganda to program in the minds of one of their followers, so they can try to hopefully wind up a Manchurian candidate, somebody on their leftist side, a minion who will believe what they're saying, double down. A lot of mentally deranged people out there, and then when they get up on re-up inhibitors and certain medications and drugs, and they can do other things, they can be heavily influenced. And this is how the left has carried out small false flags on a smaller scale. Now, if they can't accomplish this, they will, sadly, you have to study more information on this. They'll carry it out themselves, by the way, because I had a sister, someone recently, they know who they are. They've been subscribed to me for a while. I won't say their name to protect their identity, but they asked me, just like these plane crashes we were discussing, many, false flags and what bad individuals, bad actors out there have the technology and what we're capable of. And she was sharing with me something that she saw in this TV show, I guess it comes on Netflix, that stars Queen Latifah, called Equalizer. I think it was based off the movie that Denzel Washington played in, and there was some controversy before that show came out because obviously, because Queen Latifah identifies, oh, she's a open lesbian, but I'm not judging in that regard. But it was some controversy when that show was being announced, who they were going to cast as the lead actor. But I believe, just my opinion, I've never saw it before, but she was telling me they showed some information in that show relating to how they can do plane crashes or things of that. So I didn't really see that, but she did go into details. But I told her from another aspect, I found out that planes and helicopters and certain automobiles can be hacked into remotely, and specifically many of the newer automobiles that are equipped with lane assist. Friend of mine's funny, he was just showing me they had purchased a newer vehicle, and he showed me how the car backed in. I was actually sitting in the front passenger seat, and I was like, wow, how, and even while we were driving, how it helped assist. I've seen this before, but it's kind of surreal to see this yourself. In case you're wondering, they do have that technology. This is not conspiracy theory anymore. This is actual factual information, but you have to do your research if you don't trust what I'm saying. But I can verify, you will be able to verify if you look into it. And also back in the 90s, most cars, they were required to carry black boxes, no different than planes and helicopters, by the way, in case you don't know that. And they also have trackers, tracking devices, and things of that sort, by the way. So to go back over the notes, the Democrats on this panel, on these panels, they'll try to make it seem like they're bipartisan. A lot of times they'll double down and say, oh, no, Trump or Tom Homan is going to shoot the migrants, for example. No, folks, here's what's actually going on. Bad actors controlled by gatekeepers high up will carry out these staged attacks and make them look like Trump supporters or conservatives did it. This is a tactic that goes back, when you study history, goes back years ago. I won't name certain groups because I don't want to trigger, it would trigger people, but it's an uncomfortable thing. But there's a saying that if you don't learn from history, you're condemned to repeat it. I actually learned this years ago from my history teacher when I was a freshman in high school. You could even say late middle school, by the way. There's a famous quote, you can look it up. Don't remember exactly, but something along the lines, those who do not learn from history can be condemned to repeat it. And it's even in the Bible, for men perish for lack of knowledge. By the way, there's also a scripture that talks about the very elect will be deceived. Many are being deceived as far as what's going on. So what I'm sharing with you right now, this is the actual truth. This is what's actually part of what is taking place. There's other things behind the scenes that are happening. There's some stuff I'm not going to go into details about specifically, but this is a tactic that they've used, the left has used, to keep their weak-minded voters to follow along and be in a state of fear. Whether you vote for me or not, or if you don't vote for us Democrats, then we're going to hurt you. We're going to double cross you. We're going to double, like they did Mayor Eric Adams. They're going to stab you in the back. They're going to double cross you. So this is why I left it. I will never come back to the leftist Democratic Party ever again. The last time I was a registered voter personally was 2004, is when I canceled it, when an activist group woke me up years ago, and something separately, another discipline I'm into, but that's neither here nor there. Another example of this tactic was used in slavery times to keep slaves in a state of fear of not attempting to escape the slavery plantation by indoctrinating them with serious repercussions, that if they ever attempted to escape or ever attempted to do so, there would be serious repercussions. This is a tactic the left loves to do if you go over to the other side. But many have learned when they've gone over to the other side, it's not what they always suspect. They are actually, in many cases, not saying in every single case, because everybody's case is different, but in many cases, they're welcomed with open arms, by the way, contrary to the propaganda that the left has been pushing. We also learned the day before the election, this previous election, the FBI tried to get a crazy white supremacist to go shoot up a black church somewhere in Tennessee. I don't have the exact location. This was reported on by AJ from band.video, or go to maxworld.tv or infowars.com or therealalexjones.com. by the way. So I don't know specifically, but keep in mind he does have legitimate, credible sources behind the scenes. There are reputable people. There's people that have risked their lives, just like the whistleblowers who mentioned that they were ordered to stand down at that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where they attempted to assassinate Trump. They Secret Service, some whistleblowers named Ronald L. Rowe as he was the head. He was over Kimberly Cheeto at the time, who did not want to step down. It was Secret Service agent whistleblowers that mentioned the name specifically. And folks, they did this at the risk of their lives. And this is even some FBI agents, but the leftist mainstream media will only report the people like the FBI agents or whatever, people that they feel are upset about them being fired, but there's a big shakeup going on. This needed to happen. There's a big cleanup. Many of you all know that, but many crazy, deranged leftists don't understand this and still receive their propaganda, their programming. So I've learned this recently. Let me say this again. We also learned the day before the previous election between Kamala Harris and Donald J. Trump that the FBI tried to get a crazy white supremacist to go shoot up a black church somewhere in Tennessee, but it's failed. It didn't go through, fortunately. I learned this was recently reported on once again by Band.video, in case you're wondering where I get some of my information from. Not all. Keep in mind, he's partner with multiple media organizations. He's already gone to the higher up phases, phase 1 and phase 2, doubling down tactically, becoming a hard target. So understand that, those who can read in between the lines. Just for those who may be interested on the side note, where I get some of my information, not all. So this is the left's move that they have said. This is going to be their move, and they're gearing up for all of their people, their followers, to go crazy once they have another George Floyd event or something much bigger. By the way, just keep that in mind. So, I mean, a lot of people's businesses got burned down and innocent people got murdered over the summer of rage of 2020, just over George Floyd alone. Now, imagine if somebody does, say, God forbid, I say, imagine if somebody does mow down a bunch of illegal aliens waving Mexican flags at a protest, etc. That would be a sad thing. Don't, get involved. Just watch your six out there. But imagine how the mainstream media would propagandize this. And, if they are able to do this, this is something that they are planning. That's why I did title this particular video, by the way, the deep state Democrats planning a summer of rage to sabotage Trump. And there's still a few behind that were in the Stay Behind network. But Trump has learned since his first administration, his first term, that's why he's fired a lot of people, because Obama previously, they left the Stay Behind network that in Trump's first term sabotaged his agenda, where a lot of stuff he did not get accomplished, by the way, contrary to popular belief. He was even nice to a lot of the aides and people in his first term. And that's why certain people were sabotaged from even getting Trump the correct information and letting him know, even in his first term, that he could even fire people. And they were stabbing him right in the back. So understand that was actually going on. But once again, just watch your six. But these are things that the left are planning. So, for example, hypothetically speaking, God forbid, if any of this actually occurs, you will know in advance the deep state is trying to wind up crazies to do this type of stuff. If they can't find a nutball to do it, then they will do it themselves. Now, they know they're being watched and they're losing control, and they're badly coordinated. So I hope they're smart enough and don't do it, but it's one of their only moves, by the way. So I'm going to say this again. For example, hypothetically, I'm not wishing for any of this. This is not fear porn. This is just a warning to you all. Hypothetically speaking, God forbid if they actually, because, many things people had questions, like with many of these plane crashes and things. The deep state, they're trying to wind up crazies to do this type of stuff. And if they can't find a nutball to do it, they will do it themselves. So just keep that in mind. They know now that they are being watched and they're drastically losing control. They're badly coordinated, and I just hope they're smart enough and don't do it. But it is one of their only moves. Now, one of their other moves they have, I'm going to discuss other backup moves they already have, is they used and taken billions of dollars in U.S. government money they have already stolen or laundered. They actually have more billionaires on their team than Elon Musk, by the way. The left has Bill Gates. They have former New York Mayor Eric Bloomberg. They have George Soros' son, Alexander Soros, who's taken control of the operations over Open Society Foundation. That's who funds a lot of Antifa, the anti-fascist organization, the Revcom, the one of the anti-fascist groups, communist groups in America. You can look up who Revcom is, Communist Revolution of America, and other groups, by the way. And some of these groups are mad they're losing money from the NGOs because of this investigation. The mainstream is not reporting it like I'm telling you. So you're getting the actual facts here, what's going on. That's why they're mad, they're upset, they're retaliating. But they aren't. They still got, like Zuckerberg, for example, put $2 billion in last year. He gave, Mark Zuckerberg, the creator of Facebook, gave it to NGO law firms. Some of the ones that went after Mayor Eric Adams. By the way, he gave money to a law firm that just went after Mayor Eric Adams to get him out of New York. Zuckerberg is trying to pretend to be pro-Trump now, but he's actually, it's being reported on. So he's a limited hangout, as they call. But it's not all been cut off yet, but only a portion. But Doge is moving quick. But investigation has shown that the billionaire Mark Zuckerberg gave money to NGO law firms, and one of them, Hakeem Jeffries, they spread it to go after Mayor Eric Adams to a particular law firm. For just using this as an example, there's many other instances where the USAID money is being tracked, what it was being used for, not what it was originally created as, by the way. And those who don't know, I have separate notes. It was an organization that was originally created under Obama. It was just rebranded under Trump. The name was changed, by the way. Those that don't know, you can research it yourself. This is a fact on a separate note in case you don't know. So that Doge organization, Department of Government Efficiency, the name was just changed, but that was actually put in place some years ago by President Obama, but it was not being used as it was supposed to, by the way. But you have to do your own research. That's a whole separate video within itself, by the way, in case you're wondering. So on a separate note, this is why with Trump firing all these Biden-era DOJ U.S. Attorney Generals being fired, and some look at it, this move is not unusual, as the mainstream corporate media is trying to present it to the general public as this is cruel. This is common practice of a new administration that takes over when a new president comes into power. Obama did the same thing, but he did keep one of the same attorney generals who was part of the deep state that served under Bush, Attorney General Eric Holder, who served under Bush's administration. That shows you when I was getting into a debate with some people to prove that Trump is outside the establishment. And I can bring facts, and I was showing receipts to say if Trump is establishment, then why didn't he keep, all the same people as Biden or Obama if he's part of the, two heads of the same snake? No, he's a significantly outsider compared to those other groups that were deeply embedded with the globalists and work for the ruling class elite really high up. So on a separate note, when Trump is firing all these Biden-era Department of Justice U.S. Attorney Generals being fired, this move is not unusual, as the mainstream media is trying to present it to the general public as this is cruel. They're not being fair. They're being biased in their reporting, but this is not unusual when a new administration comes into power, takes over. They've done this in the past. They even do this with judges, by the way, judges as well. So this is not uncommon, just so you know that this is the facts. This move, once again, it's actually not unusual when a new administration is taking over. Being in recent times, the DOJ has become politicized like never before. This is prior to Trump coming in office. Before using extreme lawfare tactics, it was necessary. Terminating U.S. attorney generals from previous administrations is generally standard procedure. By the way, that's why Attorney General Merrick Garland, he needed to go. By the way, I knew he was a deep state minion. Remember, right after they killed Justice Antonin Scalia, Obama tried to push Garland out at the time to take over, and Mitch McConnell at the time in the Senate wanted to vote, say, wait till after the election and let the new president decide before you try to rush in a Supreme Court. Just in my opinion, when the deep state, when they murdered Justice Antonin Scalia, by the way, and I find it ironic, there was not a autopsy was not allowed, and things, it was all sketchy, how he died under mysterious circumstances. The U.S. Marshals who are assigned to protect the justices were switched out with Obama's Secret Service at the time. I just find that, and I had to read independent media just to learn that information, because the mainstream media don't trust them. ABC Nightly News with David Murrow, or NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, they won't report on a lot of the information I'm sharing with you. You have to sometimes go to the independent media to get the actual meat and potatoes and things, or because the corporate media will just be vague and won't go as in depth. Now, so many of us Trump supporters, libertarians, patriots, and people on the pro-freedom movement side knew when the local media or mainstream media reported, I mentioned briefly earlier, these so-called white supremacists marching were actually federal agents, like the ones in Columbus, Ohio, that got pulled over by the police, then later let go all of a sudden. So you mean to tell me a van full of white supremacists gets pulled over by the police, then let go without at least someone being booked for custody? Obviously, someone had to have had a warrant based on the police standards whenever there's multiple people in the car. Folks, you got to use common sense. I'm just saying. So these are deep state government agents from behind, stay behind networks, as the Trump administration is trying its best to get rid of the bad actors and wasteful spending. These bad actors are trying to create this narrative to stir up tension for martial law, so martial law could be declared. This was prior to, that was a threat mainly prior to Trump coming in, but this is what some of the things they were trying to do, because had this happened prior to Trump coming in, what they were trying to do was temporarily suspend his administration coming into power. But like I said earlier, they know they're being watched. They're losing. The deep state is losing a lot of power, by the way. So as I hope, God forbid, they don't carry out these attacks, because they're badly coordinated and they are losing power. Just something to keep in mind. So once again, the Trump administration is trying to do its best to get rid of bad actors and wasteful spending. These bad actors are trying to create this narrative to stir up tension, and then keep people once again in a state of fear, paranoia, be mad, to wind up crazy. But once again, true Aryans don't hide their faces. One of my private sources told me that, so those text messages that were sent after number 45, now number 47, one can be traced back to whoever sent those derogatory messages with the technology that we have. And I said years ago, when Facebook Meta had compromised, remember, they were caught selling people's information. That's one of the reasons they had to change the name from Facebook to Meta. People were blaming it on Elon. This was prior, where these data breaches happened. And Mark Zuckerberg is a limited hangout. By the way, he's a fake. He's just pretending to be. He's a wannabe. So just keep that in mind. He still works for the left. He's heavily loyal to the left, because he gave $2 billion, but they are running out of that that money they were spending, they were laundering. That was part of the wasteful spending, by the way. So those fake neo-Nazis were federal agents. Don't believe the hype. Just look at those fake, once again, those fake text messages. They can be traced back to whoever sent them. There's been separate instances. If the proper people did a proper investigation, they've had technology. I have a friend that works in IT, information technology, also used to work for the government. I have several friends that had secret security clearances, by the way. So that's like when people were falling for that, you know, come on now. Once again, you got to use common sense, folks, for those that believe that. So let me go over. So it came out recently. Mark Zuckerberg was at Trump's inauguration, but just last year he gave $2 billion to NGO law firms that have gone against Trump's agenda, while leftists complain of Elon Musk. On the left, you have a worse crisis with numerous billionaire donors who are being used to specifically target the left's political opponents and fund anarchist groups like George Soros' son, Alexander Soros, or former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who's a billionaire, who's being used to target Alex Jones with the Sandy Hoax lawsuit, was coordinated with bad actors in the FBI, which they had video footage of a guy that went undercover. He got an FBI agent to admit there's actual footage. I saw it myself to admit they set up Alex Jones. They used lawfare tactics to go after him, and he was also deplatformed from numerous mainstream web hosting social media sites because he was so effective some years ago. I remember that was prior to the 2018 midterms. By the way, they didn't want him getting in the way of interfering. That's when they put in a lot of their operatives, their ops, their government agents in that particular midterms. But they needed to get Alex Jones off the air. That's why they did that, by the way. So when Zelensky said to Trump recently that Trump is a Russian agent, remember they were pushing this narrative after Hillary lost, similar to how many Democrats have said this pushing that agenda has only enraged Trump. I'm going to tell you the truth. In actuality, Trump is a common sense transactionalist. He's very pragmatic and doesn't want nuclear war because that's not good for his businesses, golf courses, or hotels, and some of which are located overseas. By the way, just like Henry Ford years ago that had a factory. He was mad during the time the incident with Hitler in Germany. The factory he had was bombed. So once again, they're pushing this narrative, this agenda, and they were saying Zelensky better watch it. Vladimir Zelensky better be careful. He has a 4% approval rating in Ukraine. He got rid of their church they had when he took over. He's actually a dictator in his country. Trump is actually trying to negotiate peace. Even in Trump's first term, he was pulling the troops out. I'm for peace. They're trying to negotiate a deal. You could still see war, by the way, because the globalists, the deep state, the ruling class elite are trying to counter Trump because they're globalists. They want a new world order. They want a surveillance system. Klaus Schwab has openly said that. Remember, he wants you eating the bugs. He wants a 2030 agenda. You will own nothing and be happy. That's Klaus Schwab and his personal advisor, Yuval Noah Harari. They're very evil people. They pushing transhumanism. So Trump and Elon are allies. They're on your side. Don't believe the mainstream media. The left has more billionaires, as I just pointed out. Mark Zuckerberg is just one that's pretending. He's been exposed. But the left has George Soros and has had Soros for a long time. His son, because Soros is up there in age, his son, Alexander Soros, who married Huma Abedin not too long ago. Remember, Huma Abedin was the one that was married to Anthony Weiner when it was discovered some years ago. His laptop, they found some compromising, some bad information that linked to those sex trafficking rings. When I went over this in the past, that's where that Pizzagate information came from that was coordinated with a worldwide international sex trafficking ring that went from Los Angeles to New York, California, like the Nexium sex cult that was busted. You can look up the actor Allison Mack went down. She wasn't the head of it. Some head people pled guilty. This even tied in with Jerry Sandusky at Penn State. By the way, it showed emails that were exposed with John Podesta, people who had ties to the Democratic National Convention. A lot of turmoil. There was things during this investigation where they even killed, is believed to be Seth Rich, who worked for the DNC. By the way, that's when Julian Assange had went public at the time and said one of his leakers is believed to be had been assassinated, had been killed. By the way, that was Seth Rich. He was an IT person for the Democratic National Convention. He had leaked out some information. We had a mole on the inside, if you guys are wondering, and that's I'll show you that people have risked their lives and even died, like former Senator Nancy Schaefer out of Georgia, who was exposing how Child Protective Services was connected to sex trafficking rings and to big wealthy donors selling children and organs and stuff. And her husband were shot dead execution style, some years ago, a week before she was set to come back on Alex Jones' show as a guest. There's other people that killed the DC madam. So the deep state, who are mainly on the side of Democratic leftists, deranged liberals, at least what I say, the reason why politically, even though I'm not a registered voter, and explain my stance, why I lean more to the right versus the left. And I haven't been a registered voter since 2004, but I always say to people, I know the real history behind the Democratic Party. A lot of my own people don't understand. The Democratic Party were slave owners. By the way, this is a fact. It was the Republican Party were the abolitionists that fought to end slavery. Democrats, some of them will always try to argue that things have changed, that it switched around. That isn't necessarily true. The Democrats also voted in legislation for the Jim Crow laws and the black codes. That was the Democratic Party that was responsible for that. The Republican Party never did that. You can look up historically. They try to hide the information. Democrats were responsible for burning down Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, by the way. So I'm going to shut down my video in a bit. Thank you guys for joining. So thank you. I basically went over most of the information so far. So I'm going to shut things down right here. Until next time, take care. Peace.